1941 forced us into the ghetto. 6 months later, after surviving miraculously a terrible action with a third of the ghetto population, 10,000 people killed, it was on the 28th of October 1941, and from then on, all the Litvaks all over the world commemorate this day as the symbolic Memorial Day. My father was deported to the Riga ghetto in Latvia, and we didn't see him in the coming years. My mother was left with 2 small children and cared for them under severe, inhuman conditions. But she managed to provide us with food and safe shelter as much as she could, while going out 4 days a week for heavy work in a felt factory brigade, Pilzfabrik. They produced felt boots for the German soldiers. Moreover, when she sensed that the awful danger of snatching children, a Kinderaktion, might occur in our ghetto, just as it happened elsewhere, she was brave and decisive enough to gamble and send her children to risk hiding in shelters of noble Lithuanian people. The final result of her gamble stands here in front of you. At this point, I have to say clearly, I owe my life to 5 noble Lithuanian people. 2 among them I have not succeeded yet to identify or to find. The other 3 I managed to register as righteous among the nations, Hasidei Umot Olam in Yad Vashem, and also in the Jewish Museum in Vilna. Do I have a clear answer to the riddle of my survival, a child of 11? I could guess that it was a combination of vitality, constant alertness, ability to act independently even when alone, not losing my head in complicated and dangerous situations. Unfortunately, all that is not a sound recipe for survival. Also, sheer luck was not enough. The Germans were smart, murderous, and cunning. I should add, although I talk about the peril of a little Jewish boy, I imagine that such peril and suffer happened and still occurs to many other boys and girls in other parts of this cruel world. My heart is with those youngsters. I wish and pray that such happenings would never happen again, never again, whenever and everywhere. What was the fate of the rest of my family? My father was deported to Germany. He survived the heavy work in the death camps of Dachau, was liberated by the armory units of the 3rd American Army under the command of General Peton, and miraculously remained alive. But he was a Muslim, which was the nickname by the Germans for living corpse. As in the age of 40, he weighed 70 pounds only, 32 kilos. So indeed, for all a half year, the first half year after the liberation, he was recovering in a German hospital. My little sister, who was hidden in another house near mine in the city, was handed over to the German Gestapo after living for half a year with her so-called rescuers. I found my ghetto when I returned from a village in which I was hidden. It was totally burned down. None of my people were around. Ghetto people had all been deported to Germany on the very last days of the German occupation, and all the houses were exploded and burned down, together with the many people that were hidden inside and underneath. It seems that my mother was among those people. A young Jewish couple who came out of their hiding place took me to their new home for a time. Later, I lived in a Jewish orphanage for a while. With the help of good people, I gradually went to Poland, Germany, and reached Munich, where my father lived as a war refugee. We met again after a separation of 5 years. And here again, I am pleased to give an acknowledgement to the American state, American entity. It was the Jewish chaplain, of course, is Jew. No, I'm not Jew. However, the chaplain of the American Army, Abe Klausner, he was the chaplain of the Third Army, of the whole American Army at that time in the Western occupation area, zone. He were good things that he did, was also that he established a special fund to bring over, to import children like me that are stuck yet still in Lithuania, while one of their parents, and mostly or usually it is only one of their parents, was survived and liberated in the American zone of Germany. So I am counted among various other honorable titles also as one of the children that belong to Abraham Klausner, and I'm always glad to announce it. Even now I have connection with his widow. He himself passed away only a year or two ago, and we all those about 2 or 3 dozens of children cherish very much his memory. Then, after I met my father, as I said, after 5 years of separation, and soon an opportunity came up to move to Israel, then still Palestine, May 1946, just almost 63 years ago. After only 3 weeks together, my father and I departed again. It was just on the Passover week, just exactly 63 years ago. We had the Seder under the open sky in Marseille, France, and a week later, by a ship, we reached Israel. There, as I have told you before, I have lived ever since, 63 years already, for good. My other happenings in various hidings, the liberation by the Red Army, the later peril and adventures along my long route until I landed in Palestine, all that and more you can, if you wish, read in my book. Now I would like to cite something. The Holocaust is a dark and bottomless abyss, endlessly churning up like boiling lava. So opens the known Israeli author A.B. Yoshua his introduction to my book. Indeed, it is an endlessly churning lava. For 30 years, I led an ordinary life of building a scientific career, establishing a family, acting as much as possible as a reasonable parent, I hope so, building a cozy home, and still the early memories did not leave me. But then came a time when I felt being compelled to sit down and very cautiously, very slow and carefully, for whole 20 years to try to reconstruct my personal happenings during the Shoah days. בעברית, ותבט אשתו מאחוריו, ותהי לנציב מלח, בראשית י"ט כ"ו. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26. I found that the saying of the Bible that describes the escape of Lot and his family from the upheaval of Sodom and the bad end of his wife, Eshet Lot, as presenting an emotional situation that I am familiar with it. And indeed, I have used that fragment as a kind of a motto to the epilogue of my book. Would it not be too dangerous to look behind, to open again the lid of the Pandora box? For many years, my early memories did not trouble nor engage me too much. Deep in my heart, I knew that one day, far beyond the horizon, when people are retiring, I'll sit down and try to record some of my main memories for my children. As the ancient command says, "Vehigadeta lebincha," thou shalt tell your children. But events turned out differently, and one bright day I felt compelled to sit down and begin to scribble. It has begun by writing notes a page a week, and even that was quite hard as I and a professional editor were almost illiterate. It took me 10 full years to compile slowly the first draft of my recollections. It consisted of incidental fragments without any clear chronological order. Only afterwards was I able to move to another phase in my writing. to try to combine the various pieces of the composite mosaic into a more literary version that you can see today in the bound English version. This second phase of literary elaboration took me another 10 years. So all in all, it took me 20 full years of slow and gradual writing until I had a final manuscript to offer Israeli publishers. It was published by Yad Vashem plus Carmel edition.